Sorry.
It's going.
Ready? Okay. You recording on your phone as well?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. Good evening. We are the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board. Today is August 5th, 2025. It's 5:15 PM. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And can we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Brace to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, Mr. Brace,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Mayo,
Aye.
Mr. Franzuto,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Did we get minutes out?
I didn't see any.
Did I?
That's okay.
Did I? I don't think so.
I didn't, yeah. Anything from Marine Department, any notes? We'll go straight to Natural Resources Report. Sarah Riley, please.
Okay, I have a few announcements. On August 14th from 6 to 7:30 at 4 Fairgrounds, there's the Harbor Plan Update presentation. And then,
I'm sorry, Sarah, Fairgrounds Restaurant?
no,
No,
Probably
Or fairground.
Fuller Fairgrounds, sorry.
sorry, the police station.
All right.
And then on September 10th, this I think is finalized as of today, but we have 3 things on the select board agenda. The first one is the eelgrass management plan to be formally accepted. It was completed on July 1st. And so the next step is to get that formally adopted by the select board, and we will be putting together a work group to go through that plan and look at the recommendations and work on prioritizing them so we can get started on implementing some of the recommendations. The next thing on September 10th is we have a public hearing for the shellfish regs. I went to, let's see, I think it was either last week or the week before, I went to the select board meeting to give them a pre-presentation and prepared slides, and then they decided that they didn't want to hear it. So we're going straight to the public hearing on September 10th. I still have all those slides with all the updates. I was just hoping to kind of cut that time in half in case there were problems or questions. But they have seen the 1-pager of the updates, and I haven't received any feedback on it. So, we'll see how that goes. And then let's see what else is on there. Oh, the other thing is just an internal update for natural resources, providing what's new with us. As far as the hatchery goes, we are in August. We are pushing out our last bay scallop larval group. We released 20 million in the horse shed today, and we have another 30 million that will be ready on Thursday that we're going to take over to Mattakit. So our yearly total so far is 125 million larvae that have been released. And then we're going to shut down the hatchery portion of the facility. This is the time of year where we have a lot of spat bags in the water, and we move outside to start doing our surveys and evaluations. This year, the spat lines, the recruitment has been later than previous years. So what we're seeing right now in the harbor are really tiny, tiny scallops everywhere, just, like poppy seed size up to like 1 millimeter. And so, but they're everywhere. We have let's see, how many do we have? We have 12 spat lines between Nantucket Harbor and Mattocket Harbor that we monitor every 2 weeks. And so things just started showing up from things that we put out in the end of June. We did put out one test line in the middle of the aquaculture 60 acres. The town holds, 4 acres of our own up there. And so we put a large spat line. We've never done it before with 40 bags on it. And we got 30,000 scallops in 6 weeks from that, which is, just to put it in perspective, a third of what we usually get between all the sites in the harbor. So that's kind of like, we knew that the head of the harbor is really good for recruitment. We weren't really sure about that area, but all the oyster guys have been saying that, they have so many scallops all over all their gear and all over the oysters. So we wanted to see if we could capture some of that, because a lot of those scallops, if they don't, there's nothing beneath those oyster leases for them to survive on or attach to if they don't make it to the shallower water. So, we were able to take those 30,000, relocate them to a better area. Hopefully they'll grow. So that was kind of a cool discovery that I think we'll expand on for next year. We have 3 hatchery tours left. They're every Tuesday at 11 a.m. For the public. There is a sign up on our town website, but if you want to come, honestly, just show up, because there's lots of people that sign up and don't come. And so, we can handle, whoever wants to come through, it's fine. So if anybody has been wanting to come, but you haven't signed up, please come through. And then our dive surveys that we do, annually in the fall are going to start on September 2nd this year and run through the 12th. And we're doing Nantucket Harbor, Mattocket Harbor, and Tuckernuck Harbor. So we will be underwater for a week and a half doing those. What else? Still doing water quality. We've got spat bags till the end of October. I just looked at the shellfish sanitation sampling from July. Everything passed. There were no fecal coliforms that would close anything. So that was good. And yeah, it's been like a little bit of a weird year. It's been a little chilly and the water temperature's up and down, and it's just every year it's just a little bit different, keeps you on your toes. And I think that's it, unless you guys have any questions. Feel free.
Thank you, Tara.
This is
Yeah.
related to the eelgrass management plan, but also with the health of the harbor. When I was looking at your slides, Sarah, when that presentation went on, why is there such a gap from like 2016 or 2014 to 2020? Where did that data go?
So the gap was from 2006 to 2016. Mariah Mitchell was doing the surveys with Peter Boyce and Val Hall. And then the funding kind of went away and then everything was in limbo. Peter Boyce left. And so we weren't really sure how we were going to fund those dives. A lot of our divers did dive for Mariah Mitchell when that project was under them. And so we just kind of took a pause, and then, we were trying to figure out who the appropriate entity was to carry that forward. And the Great Harbor Yacht Club said that they would, jumpstart that program again and fund it if the town took it over, since we had all the divers. And so that's how that got reestablished. But there is a gap from 2016. But I think you're right. It might be 2014 to 2018.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tara.
Mhm.
Any explanation, Tara, of why or how you have such success with this new spat line in the Upper Harbor?
I mean, I think it's there's, not a lot of places to recruit in the middle of the head of the harbor. And I think the circulation is such where it just kind of like spirals like a, and everything kind of ends up in the middle. And You know, I get a lot of information about what settles on oysters and oyster gear. And when it first started happening, I think people were trying to save the oyster spat or the scallop spat, you know, and try and shake it off their gear and stuff. And it's just become a little bit more of a nuisance now, I think, because it is such a high recruitment area. So, you know, we have 5 lines up there all around the oyster leases, and those are our best recruitment lines. And so we were just talking about, since we have the space right in the middle of all the oyster gear, why don't we put a large line up there and see what collects? And so it kind of, you know, makes sense to, you know, if we can get 30,000 in one line up there and then put it somewhere else in the harbor, you know, that's easy pickings as far as like propagation and stock enhancement goes. It's a lot easier than, you know, running a hatchery. So I think, you know, just doing a little bit of both, you know, the hatchery and stock enhancement and seed management, I think all of that, you know, plays a part in creating a successful fishery.
Thank you for that. Any idea, have you done any diving yet? Any idea of what's out there for adult scallops?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing a lot of diving. I think there's a lot of nubs out there, stuff that was smaller, you know, at the end of the shellfish season. I think there are a lot of scallops. We go out diving, and also we've been collecting from Ryan Mitchell for their program. And it seems to be like there's no shortage. You know, every once in a while we have to pull a dredge too, and you know, tons of scallops are coming up. So, you know, we were a little bit worried early on in the season because we use our spat bags as an indicator of how the season might go and kind of, you know, work our production schedule around that. And we weren't seeing a lot, but now that we're seeing it, it's just going to be a little bit of a later season. And, you know, we're going to have a lot of tiny scallops going into the winter.
Okay, and the last 2 summers, by this time, I believe we hit 80 degrees. You mentioned temperature fluctuating. I can't imagine we've hit 80 degrees yet.
No, you know, I just was on a Zoom for the updates on the WQAV tool on the town website for looking at water quality. And that's something I want to like double check and see. You know, we don't really have that kind of the most current information on that tool. But I was going to check with Emma and kind of see if I can get some averages or look at some of the buoy data and see where we're at. But, you know, it just seems like the water coming in the hatchery's been, you know, up and down for sure. And I feel like it's a lot more down than it's been up this season.
Any fresh news at all from about the, you know, the state's line drawn from Horseshed to Monomoy? You know, is there any way you can tell that the water is you know, safer or fresher than they may imagine?
Are you talking about the line
Well,
from the horse shed to the lighthouse for the cohogging? Or are you talking about the mooring field?
Are you talking about the USDA closure?
Yeah.
Talking about that?
yeah,
Okay.
Oh,
that's
well, I was, like I said, I was just looking at the shellfish sanitation report, and on that report, they test the hatchery and the Coast Guard and also Brant Point Light. And, you know, we've been trying to test the hatchery so that we can get that part open, as well as, you know, the horse shed. And it on the sheet, it said open classification. And I was like, oh, maybe it had a classification change. So I called them up and they had just made an error in their recording. But they did say that, you know, they need some more sampling, but things were trending in a positive direction for that, which I would suspect it should. So.
good. Thank you. Any questions from the board? Any questions, comments from the public? we'll move into old business. Tara, we kept this on here just in case there are any last minute changes. Do we need to keep this on here, for one more meeting if we meet again in August? The amendments to town shellfish regulations.
I mean, like I said, it's a living document and it's on for September 10th for approval moving forward. But I think the longer we, look at it and talk about it, the more change, you're always going to want to make changes or improvements. So, unless there's anything major between now and September 10th, I think what is written is gonna go for approval. I know Erica is gonna post a red line copy of it. I'm guessing it will probably be posted on the town website for public hearings, so that you can see what changes were made. And, I don't know if people really look at that sort of thing in advance, but we're trying to roll it out before recreational and commercial seasons start, because there's still some work to do, because some of the regulation changes that we made involve developing BMPs, for the apprentice program, which we need to jam that out so that that's ready to roll. We're doing a dredge study in September, our department is, so there's, a lot that needs to happen to go with some of those changes that we made.
So in short, you're saying if we felt the need to make a modification, we could up until before September 10th?
I mean, I guess you could, I think that it would be, I think you guys voted, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure, but if you voted to accept them as is, or, they've gone through town council, they've gone through Libby, and now they need to go through the select board. But I think what we should do is, put something in place where we review them once a year instead of every 4 years. And that if there's some things that need to be tweaked and changed, we can do that. But I think, I don't know. I feel like we looked at them for a very long time, the timeline was like over a year. And so I think
I
it's
agree.
time, I think it's time to move it forward, in my opinion.
Yeah, most
Okay.
And
Dave?
most definitely.
Yes. All right. The only reason I ask is I was approached recently about some of the fines seeming a little extreme, and where we have spent a considerable amount of time on this, and had two fishermen here that were very in tune to all of this, Mr. Sherlin especially, and so I feel like there was plenty of time for the public to have gotten involved. So if somebody's concerned about a fine, just make sure you're not any violation, right? Then the fine won't bother you.
and Mr. Chairman,
Peter?
so given what Tara said about how it's been vetted by everybody,
Mhm.
we're at that point. To me, it's too late for us to try and make a change
Mhm.
based on what
Yeah,
those people
I
are
agree.
saying, but those people can come to the public hearing and voice their concerns, and if that warrants something, then we could change it beyond that date, but what we created now shouldn't mess with it.
that makes sense. Thank you, Peter. Okay. Anything else on amendments to shellfish regulations? Vatican ditch dredging to enhance and improve herring runs.
I can
Anything-
speak to that.
Dave?
Yeah, I reviewed the draft harbor plan. I think I'm on my third review, and I submitted some grammatical and structural changes to them. And I can send those to you. I can send you the email that I sent them rather than me go over it. But as far as the ditch is concerned, it was spoken about on page 113. It was spoken again in section 2.4. So it's included in there. And as Tara has said, the public hearing is going to be on the 14th. But I'm pretty sure that you all got copies of the draft. And also, I'm pretty sure that you've got uh, the emails so you can make any comments between now and then. The comment period uh, for the public is going to be open until August 31st. But as far as the ditch is concerned, and the eels are concerned, it's um, emphasized in there in three different locations that I know of.
And thank you for sending those out to us, Dave.
I've
Scott?
got another email recently that also has some links on it that I'll be sending out. Um, we're basically saturating social media and flyers and notices and emails to everybody that we can think of. So you might be inundated with this stuff until August 14th, but we felt it was important to get the word up.
Thank you, Dave. Scott?
So I was down at Long Pond Landing and was having a chat with a lady by the name of Leslie Johnson, who is involved in sometimes with the land bank. She's also on the board at the Mattocket Conservation Association. And she said that she would make a recommendation to the Mattocket Association to help fund some of that ditch dredging. So, and she suggests maybe we talk to Bill Grieger and so there's some money out there to accomplish some of the stuff that just sometimes you talk to people
Well,
and look at an opportunity.
Dave?
yeah, Leslie's been involved in this stuff for as long as I can remember, and the Mattocket Association has funded stuff for us before. So and I believe that there's another Mattocket Conservation Trust or something. Anyway, yeah, they've always been a good resource, and now that you mentioned that, Scott, I'm going to make sure that Leslie gets a copy of the draft plan because she's one of those people that has her fingers in a lot of pies, and she can be very helpful and persuasive. So I'll make sure she gets a copy so she can comment.
Good, Mr. Chairman.
Peter?
Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not getting the money together to do it, it's getting the permits, right?
Yeah, you got it. You got to get the.
Army
got-
Corps here, right? And the Coast Guard, I think, no?
Well,
And the
no, you probably don't need the Corps and the Coast Guard because it's not a navigable waterway. But you do have to go through the permitting. And if you remember when we talked about the dredge plan, this was brought up numerous times at the public hearings and also at our board and at with that Vince Murphy guy. So that who was working on the dredge plan. So this was, I think it was the number one or two top priority of what we and what the public felt was on the radar to do as a project sooner than later. So yeah, you do have to get a permit, but I don't think the permit for that would be too cumbersome. I mean, it's probably a year out and it's probably some money, but because it's not a navigable waterway and you're doing it for water quality and fisheries, you can probably get it a little bit easier.
So back to funding, Dave.
And I don't, and the other point that probably needs to be made is that there's no eelgrass there, so you're not going to have to worry about that sort of environmental impact. It's not like trying to dredge Pulpus Entrance Channel, where you're dealing with eelgrass and shellfish and everything. So anyway, I'm sorry, Andy. Go ahead.
No, I'm just curious, would you foresee there being a funding issue that would slow this down?
No, I don't think so. I think that, it all depends on what priority list that they're gonna start working off of to get this stuff permitted and funded. So, as Scott brings up, I've always been a great advocate of bringing your own money to the table. So it's a lot simpler if you can identify a possible funding source like the Mattocket Conservation folks. Uh, and I'll also send. Um, I'm making a note. I'll also send Bill Greeter a copy uh, of the draft plan, and you can be assured that I'll mention in there about the dredging of the ditch, and uh, appreciate their any help that they can give us. You might as well get them thinking about it.
Well, that's what I was, first thing I thought of was the Shellfish Association. If we're looking for money, if somebody were willing to approach them, see if they're
Well, I
willing to.
sent I sent the draft plan to them.
Oh, good.
Um, but as far as and I don't mean to discredit in any way all the good work that they've done, but this is a little bit outside that scope. This is more water quality and eels. It's really not tied to shellfish, but I know that they've got a broader focus, broader vision than that. But uh, I have sent them a copy of the draft plan.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Anything else on the Mattocket ditch?
At some point, we're gonna have to make a recommendation, an advisory to the select board. We want to do this. Once we get our, all of our information and what we have to do, at some point, we need to say to them, we're working on this.
Yeah,
So-
good point. I just want to make one more point on that. In the plan, it said when they initially talked about this, they said that the ditch could be open to improve water quality and reestablishment of eels in there. And in my draft review and my submittal to them, I want that word could change to should. And um, Peter's right. We get a little bit more traction on this. We get it memorialized in the harbor plan, and then we then make sure that it's on the top of the priority list of dredging projects.
Okay, so you don't foresee now being the time to draft that letter?
No, I think the plan needs to get adopted and public commented, and then you've got something to reference and hang your hat on, um, along with all of our discussions that we've had about dredging, and why it's important. But I think we had some of these discussions the other day at the harbor plan meeting too. It harkens back to what Tara just said about the shellfish regulations. You got it this far. Let them adopt it, and then you start picking it apart and forcing them to do things that are called out in the plan, and make it, and then we can set some priorities, just like we did with the shellfish regs. We didn't completely redid it. We picked our priorities, and we got those important things in front of the selectmen. I think this is very similar to that.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter,
so once the plan is approved both here and by the state, then the current harbor plan committee will morph into an implementation committee. And then it'll be, as we go through the plan, we'll be able to say, all right, here's where we say we're cleaning out the Mattocket ditch and dredging the ditch. That'll just be one thing that we can say, well, the plan says we have to do this. So
Exactly.
then, so instead of doing it outside of that, it's better to wait until we have that, the weight of that document behind us.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for that, Peter. Anything else on the ditch? The recreational shellfish permit button, we kept this on here. Dave, I think you
Well,
mentioned,
No, it was me.
oh, Scott, okay,
Yeah, I have two emails out to, Jody Casper, and I know she's really busy right now with all the craziness on the island. So I told her, I understand it may not be your priority, but we still want to make some changes. In the emails, I made sure she understood about the historic, nature of, the brand. So, again, I will, once we get past the summer, I'll push harder, and I know you'd like to have new scallop buttons for the fall, but we'll have to see if that is a reasonable time frame or not. The other thing, Tara, we may need to figure, I don't want to push too hard on certain aspects until I know that Jeff Carlson might be a fallback, but for some reason, I do recall that all permitting was turned over by the town to, whether it be a party or anything, I think, to the police department or somebody under that. So
Yep.
I don't know that they're gonna carve that out to another entity, but I.
Which is how Amy Baxter got involved, because she's the licensing and permitting agent for the town. And the shellfish and the permits and the moorings and all that was turned over to them. I brought that same issue up, Jeff, and I'm not trying to pressure Jeff. But he would have to accept that challenge or responsibility as far as selling those permits. And I'm not so sure that that's a responsibility that he could or should, or his department should take on. But that's not the issue. The issue is the design. And Tara and I and many other people agree that the historic nature of that design is what should remain. And to be perfectly honest and blunt, I don't really care who sells the damn permits, but this was the issue. And they were the ones that got wrapped around the axle on somebody else selling the permits. I just want them to revise their revise the design, not I'm probably not willing to get in the middle of the fight as to who sells them, but I think we need to agree that we want the original design.
I won't go away on that. I have a bag of buttons that goes back 30 years. So,
Tara's got her hand up.
Unfortunately, I do too.
I was just gonna say, I agree with Dave. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, they sell permits, they deal with parking tickets, like that's what they do. We just need the design back. It's not a big deal. No one needs to be upset about that. And it's just a simple change, and we can't do it for this season because people buy their permits, at the end of March. So, but we can we can certainly work on it and put it in place for next March.
But the other point too, Tara, and I don't want to, I don't, I'm being tactful here. I don't want to let natural resources off the hook entirely, because I really believe that natural resources needs to review the actual paper permit and shovel as much regulatory and good information to the police department so they can distribute it. I don't want to let you guys off the hook there. And if it means that we have to, print 1,000 whatever flyers, whatever it is, I just, or at a minimum, go and review what they are handing out, and ask them what their procedure is. I don't want to let them off the hook either, but but we gotta
No.
make sure that they've got good information to distribute to the public, especially
I
somebody.
agreed,
Okay, thanks. I knew
100%.
you would, but I just,
Peter,
But Dave and Kara, another, it'll be another good result of the updated harbor plan when once it's live, is that we, we've talked in almost every section about public education, so we'll be able, with the plan, be able to tell the natural resource department, we need you to give all this information over the police station.
yeah, it's kind of a, not to belabor this, but it's kind of like a new lease on life. You get a whole new opportunity to bring what you feel is important to the forefront.
wonderful. Thank you, Scott, Peter, Dave.
Just one last thing, when I did
Yeah.
go over, the only thing that's out there in any numbers is the actual one-page permit, which doesn't tell anything about reporting. I mean, I know this is really for recreational, but I know we wanted recreational reported, so Tara, if you have anything about handing out reporting stuff for recreational people, I think you should get that over to that lady as well.
Yeah,
I don't recall receiving anything when I got my last permit, and I mean, what it comes to mind immediately is safety and waiters. And after we had a tragedy with that, it was high on everybody's list, and it should remain high on the list of reminders to recreational fishermen. Be careful when you're out that deep and you step into a hole and all of a sudden you're floundering. So I remember Sheila being very concerned about that too. Wanting to add it to signs at access points, I believe. Anyhow, all right, thank you for that. Anything else on the shellfish button? Okay, update on progress for potential intertidal oyster farming. I think our last meeting was very informative on this. I myself did not realize that intertidal space or acreage was provided to 3 out of 5 farmers. And it seems to me that this is very important space that is well utilized by the 3 farmers that have it. And it almost puts those who do not have intertidal space at quite a disadvantage, at least in my opinion. That's how it appears. I don't think Mr. Fitzgibbon is coming before us and trying to push any frustration buttons by any means. And he here, so he can speak for himself on this. I'd just like to, I'd like to know why, from the root of, when all of this began, when leases were created, why only, 3 out of 5 leases have intertidal space to use, and why it was not divided up in such a way that all 5 farmers would get a portion of that intertidal space. And I'm not
Mr.
sure.
Chairman?
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, it's not something that was done, in not intentionally is not the right word, but when you apply for the lease, you apply for a location, and those deep water plots, you apply for a location, and that's the lease that you're contracted to operate. If when you apply that there's no intertidal area, then then there's no intertidal area that's attached to that lease. It's not by choice, it's by application.
Okay, I'm still having a hard time understanding it because, two of the deep water leases that are in the head of the harbor have intertidal space over in Pocomo, which is, they're not, attached, by any means, but if that's how those leases work, as you say, then that's how those
Well,
two leases work.
maybe Tara, I'm sure Tara can help clarify this.
Oh, Tara's got a hand up. Thank you, Tara, please.
Only because I was involved in this at the early stages with the permitting, is that those two intertidal leases were Steve Bender had a lease long before I came, and then Simon Edwards was the next one to apply, and that's what took up those two spaces. And then the only other ones that were available at the time to permit were deep water leases. And so that's the evolution of how that was. There wasn't a larger area surveyed to allow for, more space later on. And that's where the Cascada shallow water over winter sites came from, because people started working up there and realized that they needed some way to overwinter their stuff if they wanted to harvest it. The bottom's soft up there, so they also wanted a hard bottom, a safe place to move their oysters. And so that was kind of like the evolution of how that happened. And, people have been working those leases in the deep water up there, and they've, it's taken a long time to figure out how to do it and how to, there isn't one way to grow oysters. There are a lot of ways to grow oysters, and some people have figured it out, and some people haven't been around long enough to figure it out. And so, we do need to look at other options, but, also people need to figure some things out, in my opinion. But that's why it wasn't an option to divvy up that site in Pocomo Meadows. Like, those were two leases and that was it.
Right. The original lease was the Nantucket Shellfish Farm back in the Martin Seeley and Bob Garrison days, and Joe Lopes and John Stackpole and those guys. We're talking the 80s, and then it went to Martin Seeley and to Garrison. It was bought out, and then Bender applied and bought them out. So it was an evolution. It wasn't like we had all this space that we could say, okay, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get this. It was, we had the deep water sites surveyed, which I believe is 60 acres, Tara? And we carved it out, and then we kept a piece for the town. We have a site inside Pulpus Harbor, which has been tried a couple different times. But anyway, it was what was applied for, and that's what they were permitted.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Mr. Fitzgibbon? Yes, please.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hi, Sean here. That's the whole purpose of my request, is to update the current status of where the oyster farms are at from where Steve Bender, who is recently deceased and applied for his farm back in the early 2000 decade, which was before 2010, maybe 2008. That's when I saw Simon take over that site as well and utilize the shallow water. So both of those farmers have been utilizing that shallow water for a long time. That's when I first started working for Steve Bender, was in about 2008 or 9, whenever he took over that farm. In high school, I worked with Emil Bender, who now runs the farm exclusively. Um. Simon made a pretty big deal over asking for that extra 2 acres on his site then in 2009 or 2010 approximately, because he recognized how important it was that his site, which was originally just deep water Wawanit area, be partnered with the shallow water access, which is his 2 acre Okemo site, which he utilizes strictly to this day with his partner Mac Rafe, who does not have a name on that site. It's actually only two people who have shallow water, Emil and Simon, but Mac uses Simon's eight very much so to make their operation a success in partnership. Matt Hurd doesn't utilize any shallow water that I've ever seen him do. He seems pretty content with what he's doing up harbor, just utilizing deep water space. However, I don't think he's producing enough oysters to meet the local demand, which is quite high for oysters here in the summer months, which is, July, August, September, really. We're at a peak demand for oysters and we can't grow enough. None of us can grow enough right now. So I know there's room for more production. The advantages to the shallow water is that you can just work so much easier and produce so much more with I don't know how else to say it, less of a pain in the ass, which is everything to do with the deep water site, the wind, the sun, the elements, everything. It makes it very restrictive just working on a deep water site. So I'm not asking for something that's out of reach or out of realisticness, because we have shallow water access on this island. We're not a place that has rocky shoreline. We have a lot of shallow sand bottom shoreline that really meets the state requirement of aquaculture. So I know it's not in my favor at this point. After speaking with the trustees this morning, they've said that they don't want to see aquaculture on their Wires Point area shoreline, which is up to the median or low tide area on that Wires Point to Cascada Inlet. But I might ask that if there be any area within the harbor space or Matticat Harbor, which could include the Bass Point region or Fourth Point or anywhere in Matticat up to Eel Point, from the bathtub to Warren's Landing sort of area, might be considered in the future for an observation of aquaculture that might meet state and local requirements. That's basically where we're at with this. I don't want to go on and on, but it's just really clear that the advantages that are provided by the shallow water access are being restricted to a couple of operations where all of us, being maybe Matt, Macker, myself, should be granted the opportunity for such expansion, or anyone else in the future of this industry might be interested in growing an operation on this island, because the demand is there. I mean, it's clear, it's food, it's seafood production, it's what we're famous for in the mainland. Please.
Scott?
Are you sure that it's the trustee land? Because I had a good conversation with Dave Bossy about a week ago, and he's in his own mind doesn't think it's the trust property, and he think it's the Conservation Association.
Well, you might be mistaken on what portion you're thinking of.
Okay.
Where they have shallow water winter over only is in front of Conservation Foundation property, where he was asking to potentially open up new space east of Wyers Point is trustees' property, as far as I know. So, do you know specifically what you were talking to Dave Boston?
What must have been the original site, yeah.
What, Mr. Chairman, could I?
Dave, please.
Yeah, I just think that what he has said is true. But Tara said it earlier, is we just need to survey additional areas and get those areas qualified for uh, for aquaculture through the state. It's and that's just a process. And I know Mr. Fitzgibbon's been working with the state and Jeff to do that. I think that's next step. That's the next steps, is to get some other areas qualified. And if it becomes an issue of upland property owners or whatever, then that's a a discussion that has to be had site specific. But I think we just need to get more uh, you know areas surveyed so they can be considered. We've got everything. It's my understanding we have everything that we own or control or operate or manage leased out right now. We just need to, if this is an issue, then they need to clear some more areas for use.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brace.
So Sean, you're up. So you're operating deep water now, correct?
Yes,
And then in the winter, you're able to transfer to shallow water, to shallow water site to keep it there, correct?
it's shallow, but not intertidal.
But you're allowed to put it in that spot near Cascada. So you can operate now until things get better for you. Is that correct?
No, currently, until things are changed, that site is restricted to after October, I think it's November till May. We're allowed to use that Cascada area.
Right. What I'm saying is you're not out of business because you can't get your spot where the trustees say they don't want you. Is that correct?
My business in the last year has changed severely since what I was using and misunderstandably using at that. However, the overwintering area is strictly used for overwintering.
Right.
So there's no grow out allowed there. So no, it's to no advantage from the growing summer months.
No, what I'm saying is you're in business in deep water.
Yes,
Okay.
But
I was just asking because not the whole thing doesn't hinge on him getting that space. What hinges on that is him being able to expand to a place that works better for him.
yes.
Yes. Okay.
I don't know if expand is the right word, but.
Well, move to a better place that works better
Relocate,
for him.
yes.
So,
Which seems to make sense as far as how the product comes out, how much work goes into the product.
sure.
It sounds like it eliminates the power washing. It sounds like a lot of aquaculture activity on the Cape is done in intertidal space as well. I understand that, there can't be any active life on the bottom where this takes place.
So I had a thought. So for Miss Riley, when you guys are doing the bottom surveys coming up and you're in Mattocket, can you keep your eyes open for us for places that could be potential aquaculture? Or do you already know that there's what's out there?
We haven't surveyed any areas in Mattakit for aquaculture. When I first started, though, we did put out a bunch of cages in a variety of areas to test grow out for oysters. But yeah, we typically, usually whoever wants to apply for the lease does the legwork on that. They kind of do the initial thing, and then ask permission from the town, and then the town asks the DMF to come do a formal survey. So, if I'm offering my personal opinion, I think, the overwinter site probably should be looked at again to see what the Nantucket Conservation Foundation thinks. I don't know if anybody has asked them a question about what that might look like on their property. And, from a DMF standpoint, I think it's easier to do an expansion than a whole new approval. But I think, it's worth having that conversation and exploring it before looking at new areas, because there's also, 6 or 7 spots there. So it creates more of an equity to just do an expansion there. And I think people are used to seeing aquaculture in that area already. It could be an easier sell. I don't know. It's just something that I've been thinking about.
Ron, please.
I hate to be really rude, but what have I been asking for the last year? If not an observation of that overwintering site or another suitable site for aquaculture.
Well, this is a process we've had to,
It's Tara's response right there. I'm just blown away.
well, we had to, don't jump too far ahead.
What is this meeting even for? Why am I here?
Because we had to go through all that, Sean, for Tara to have that thought, to arrive at that. We weren't
Blown
thinking,
away.
wait, don't interrupt me while I'm speaking.
So, here.
I think a lot of us here are in support of you. So,
You are.
so we had to come around to it. It sounded like Tara had that thought, but it didn't happen when you came in initially. So it took a while for us to get to that point, and here we are. You met some resistance when you came in here, and now a lot of us are in support of you. So it moves at the speed of government. That's all I can say. And it's not as if, oh, here comes Sean, let's hold back. We had to talk it out and figure it out, and then so talk about that thought, and so that's a direction maybe we can go.
And and Peter's exactly right. Tara, could you help me? Who I know Matt Herr operates a deep water site only, and Sean, does anybody else have just a deep water site? No.
Mac Wraith.
I'm sorry?
Mac Wraith.
Matt Wraith. Okay. He has just a deep water site.
But
Well,
Yes.
but
then-
as Sean,
All right.
earlier-
So basically there's 3 guys that are just operating in deep water sites. The hell with the overwintering crap. That we're talking about grow out here and it's not, we're not talking about overwintering. I go back to what I said earlier. Then if the town decides, with or natural resources decides with or without our recommendation that we get some additional sites surveyed and approved, I would be interested to know whether those 3 deep water guys would be interested in having a shallow water site too. And that would further this discussion that it would benefit everybody, not just one person. And we would look at it at the bigger picture rather than just one little corner for Sean to grow some oysters. So I think, again, to Peter's point, unfortunately, the wheels turn slowly, but I think we're thinking about this, and we need to, have the discussion about looking at additional sites. I know I've told you, but I'm doing a lot of work up in Wellfleet, and they've got a well-established world class oyster operation up there, but it's all intertidal, and there's an awful lot of grants up there and an awful lot of property. But you also got to remember that they have a, a lot bigger tide than we do. So that's one of the things that limits us. But I think Peter's right. I think we need to, push it down, push the can down the road, and see if there's an appetite from the town and the state to approve additional sites for everybody.
It's not as if that, you know, that we would be against it. It's just that we hadn't come to that realization till, recently. So
Right. Right.
it's not like, no, it's okay. Now the discussion brought us to this point.
Right. Exactly.
Sean,
Excuse me. My only other comment maybe for this evening, excuse me, is if the other farmers who have intertidal area, Emil and Simon, were interested in commenting on the situation, a very fair question I feel like would be, what would they do if they were only restricted to deep water access? And that's not a sudden move, but what would they do if they lost their shallow water access? How would they operate? What would they expect for net gains? How much success would they expect out of their site? Now, Mac Rafe is not Matt Hurt, is partnered with Simon and works very much so out of that shallow water area. And that's where I feel like they, as a partnership, find success. Now, how they do that is through, I would assume, legal state protocol, which is seed sales agreements, overwintering transfers, a lot of very legitimate lease transfer operation, because moving oysters, adult oysters especially, from shallow water to deep water sites is very restrictive. However, I just find that those shallow water guys grow probably about 8 times as many oysters as the deep water guys are allowed to grow, just strictly on the basis of capacity, not on how hard we work or how willing we are to work the sites. I think Matt Herr works as hard as anybody up there, but he doesn't grow many oysters because I talk to restaurants, I talk to the wholesalers, and there's a serious demand for oysters, and myself included in this. I cannot grow as many oysters as are in demand here, and that's very frustrating. However, I'm willing to accept a future in this industry on the deep water site if that's the only thing offered to me, because I don't want to give it up. But it's very frustrating, like I said, to watch my co-workers grow an exponential amount of product and make an exponential amount of money in the short season that we have, which is the summer months here on Nantucket, and leave us in the quote unquote dust as far as product. It's very important to this industry that we grow enough food to feed the masses, and we have a huge amount of tourism here on Nantucket, not to mention the rest of the country, where there is a massive demand for seafood. So really my only request is an assistance from our departments to open up more avenues, if not for myself, then any number of future aquaculture applicants, to grow more seafood on this island, because the deep water site is very, very restrictive. 8 acres seems like a lot of space, but it's not. It's not nearly enough to meet the demands, or a realistic demand that is required to sustain such an operation.
but smaller amount of acreage in intertidal is more productive.
Absolutely.
And what has happened to, and I don't know who should be able to answer this question, but there's one section of acreage being left out here, and it's Chuck Connor's lease. Did he have intertidal space? Is his space being used? Is he active at all? And, just,
He worked with Simon in partnership and he opted out of the operation almost 2, maybe 3 years ago. I'm not sure what's happened to his 10-acre space, which is 2 acres in the Cascada overwintering area and 8 acres of the Up Harbor area. I'm not sure if Matt Herr maybe took over that space this year through a transfer of ownership, but I've spoken with Chuck at length on this discussion, and y'all can ask him yourselves, but he told me it's ridiculous to think that someone can make a living out of the 8-acre situation up harbor without a shallow water option. That's why Simon partnered with Chuck, and now Simon is partnered with Mac, and they all work collectively off of Simon's grant. Is because it's a very successful operation, and it's because of that shallow water aspect of that operation that it's successful,
thank you, Sean.
in my opinion. Success is a matter of the eye of the beholder. However, success may be agreed upon that to cover your expenses on this island and the operation of aquaculture, which is very expensive for gear, boats, seed, everything included, labor, that you need to be making money here to sustain one of these sites.
Could I just ask one more question then?
Please do, Dave.
Tara, how difficult would it be to, or maybe you already have it, I'm sorry, just give us a one-page sheet that shows the leases, where they are, boxes with names on them. I think that would be a next step, again, to, move this forward.
Yeah,
If you've
Joseph
got-
Manila, Joe Manila, the facilities guy here at the hatchery, he is in charge of administering the lease permits and the program now. And under the direction of Jeff, obviously, but I can have him do that. If anybody has a question about the status of leases, I mean, Joe can help with that. I don't know what's going on with Chuck's lease. That's a question for Jeff. Definitely don't have
Well,
that lease.
that would be that would be helpful if he could attend a meeting, and we could just say, give us the a chart with the boxes on them with names and when they went into effect, and when, just tell us what's active and what's not, and who's working it.
Yep.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Dave. Good question. Thanks. Thank you, Tara. Scott,
The one thing, Sean, is that when Peter said we were trying to get up to speed on this stuff, not until probably 1 or 2 meetings ago did we ever hear the words, the intertidal from anybody. I heard overwintering, I've heard deep water, but the intertidal and how it seems crucial, that is to a high success rate. And, I'd like to be fair to everybody, and I'd kind of like, now I'm up to speed, at least understanding the difference of, overwintering and intertidal. So make my own.
well, correct me if I'm wrong, the intertidal, and allowing your product to basically get bleached in the sun, is that it, during low tide? And it's keeping algae from growing on the product. It's saving you time of having to pressure wash your cages.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's also, which hasn't been mentioned tonight, but has been, an issue, as far as I know, is the cormorants landing on the deep water gear. And if you're in intertidal space, the cormorants have no interest in landing on it, so you're not dealing with the defecation from the birds, which, can, pose a health risk. Um, you know, I don't know what there is to, what more there is to learn to adapt to deep water, space only and be productive enough to meet demands. You know, just seems to me that the intertidal space, would be important to all the farmers and, to be equivalent to farmers on Cape as well. As Mr. Fransuto has said, they're all utilizing intertidal space, so being restricted to deep water only, and I've learned this just recently too. I believe our last meeting was very informative. And I'm hoping to hear from Natural Resources, you know, more about this and being able to assist Mr. Fitzgibbon in moving forward in what he's looking for. So, you know, we'll talk with Joe Manila and see if he can attend our next meeting. Anybody else on this? Anybody, board members, Mr. Fitzgibbon, anything else you'd like to add? Okay. Next item is eelgrass management plan. Any input, any discussion? Thank you, Sean.
Thanks for coming, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Mr. Palazuto, or anything at all on the eelgrass management plan? If there's no discussion, we'll move forward. To new business. We did not have any meeting in July. Anybody have, any, you know, how do you feel about meeting in 2 weeks, August 19th, since we did not meet at all in July?
I'm just gonna go on record and I will not be here from September 8th through October 11th. I'll be back.
And you
So
won't be,
if you, if there's,
you won't be attending via Zoom.
I'll be
during
in
that.
New Zealand and Australia.
Okay. Okay,
So if there's issues that we need or need board people, then I would say let's have another meeting. If not,
Mhm.
then
I'd like to, you know, since we've missed all of July, I think it would be wise to have, August 19th. September 2nd is, you know, the day after Labor Day. It's not exactly a popular time to have a meeting, but we do have it scheduled for then.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Dave, please.
Yeah, August 19th, I'm traveling, I'm going south, so,
Okay,
and I'll be down there for a month, but I'll do anything with Zoom, but that particular day, I'm traveling.
okay, thank you, Dave. Well, at this point, you know, unless we hear something different between, now and, the 16th, we'll plan on creating an agenda on the 16th. Peter, unless we,
Yeah,
unless we
Yeah.
know we're not gonna have a quorum. I know Mr. DeCosta's still busy at that time. Mr. Sherlin couldn't make it tonight, but he didn't say he couldn't make it in August, so, at this point in time, we'll just plan on creating an agenda 3 days before the 19th. Any updates or discussion on the draft harbor plan?
I think we pretty much got that from Dave,
Yeah.
didn't we?
Yeah, just bear with me if you get a bunch of emails in the next couple weeks, just, there's links, like I said, there's links, there's flyers, there's all kinds of stuff there. So, and like I said, the comment period's open until August 31st. So we just want to get the word out.
Thank you, Dave. Public comments? Anything, board would like to see on the agenda for our next meeting? If not, our next meeting will be August 19th, then September 2nd. I will accept a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Brace to adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor, Mr. Brace,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Mayo, Mr. Franzuto.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned, 6:30 PM. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Ted.
Take care.